Good evening from Washington. This is the Ingram Angle, and we have another important hour to bring you on this Friday night. No time to waste. Out of ideas. Wow, the Democrats have turned to the same dog-eared playbook over the DACA deal. You got it, race. And an update to an explosive story we brought you last night. We were the only show to highlight a heroin ring that was busted in Denver, Colorado. We have new details exclusive tonight on the legal status of these creeps. And do you know the full story behind Dick Durbin? The man in the middle of the latest Oval Office imbroglio. We have an important backstory on him tonight. But first, Democrats race against reality. That's the subject of tonight's angle. All right, when they're cornered and they're out of options, Democrats have a nasty, but it's a really predictable habit of racializing everything. They did it to Reagan, they did it to Bush, they even did it to McCain, and of course they did it to Romney. And they've been doing it to Donald Trump since the day he announced his candidacy.
First, we have to deal with the fact that the xenophobic rant he went on and on about Mexicans and them being racist and criminal. I mean, it was horrible.
God, even the notion that he talks in seems fictitious.
It's
Is
crazy.
that too strong a word?
No, it's not too strong a word. I mean, I also think it's racist. I think we can use that word.
Well, it didn't work then, and it won't work now, but they're trying. Yesterday, Senators Durbin and Graham, they wanted to foist their bipartisan DACA deal on the president. And by the way, Dick and Lindsay's Immigration Act is about as viable these days as Siegfried and Roy's. Okay, we've seen this before. Well, they pranced up to the White House for the grand unveiling, and they were flummoxed when immigration stalwarts, Congressman Bob Goodlatte from Virginia and Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, were already in the room, as was White House policy advisor, immigration expert Stephen Miller. Remember, just a few days earlier, when the cameras were rolling, the president said he would not sign any DACA deal without the funding of his wall and an end to chain migration and that stupid visa lottery system. Yet somehow the dynamic duo thought that they could, through charm and flattery alone, con Trump into agreeing to their solution that didn't meet the president's baseline. Actually, if you can believe it, their idea increased chain migration. The president, to their faces, said it was dead on arrival. Good for him. Durbin and Graham were so enraged after being spurned, somebody went to the press. They peddled the story that Trump had referred to Haiti and unspecified African countries as S-holes, and that we should try to get Norwegian immigrants here instead.
His comments said things which were hate-filled, vile, and racist, calling the nations they come from the exact word used by the president, not just once, but repeatedly.
Now, the president, in a tweet this morning, denied that he used that language, and Durbin clarified later that the president was referring to African countries whose citizens regularly use the visa lottery system, not Haiti itself. Now, setting aside the alleged remark for a moment, would you describe any of these countries as Shangri-La? I mean, if people there were living in Club Med, they wouldn't be trying to crash our borders. And I think it's important, don't you think, at this point, after all the verbiage, to take a look at some of the real facts about a few of the countries that can't keep their own people from leaving. Now, let's begin with El Salvador, a country I've been to many times that I've known very well for the last 30 years. Its capital has the highest murder rate in the world. Somalia, well, guess what? It's one of the largest state sponsors of terrorism, has one of the, is a safe haven for terrorists across the globe. And then, of course, Sudan, it's one of the 4 countries on the U.S. state sponsors of terror list, in addition to a lot of other bad facts. Now, I would not have called these countries what the president did, but they are rank with corruption, repression, and, of course, it's obvious, isn't it, that they offer their citizens little hope of a better life. In other words, they're hellholes. But for the Democrats and their media allies, who are forever feigning an affinity for the third world, facts don't matter. After all, race-baiting the president is so much more fun.
The president is a white supremacist.
That is absolutely racism with steroids.
The president of the United States is racist.
We voted for a racist.
They're not whole countries. For one, Donald Trump isn't their president.
We have in the White House someone who could lead the Ku Klux Klan, somebody who could be the leader of the neo-Nazi.
When it came to the issue of, quote, chain migration, I said to the president, do you realize how painful that term is to so many people? African Americans believe that they migrated to America in chains.
Now, of all the things I've ever heard Tricky Dick Durbin say, that one perhaps could take the cake. Now, is he really suggesting that the term chain migration, which has been part of the vernacular surrounding the immigration debate for decades, constitutes some type of hidden racism? It's a code language? Well, I think maybe he's been talking to Joe Biden.
Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Remember the guy who's booing in the crowd? He had already too many mimosas early in the morning. Well, all of this demonstrates that the Democrats, Durbin, and all the rest, they had no real intention of working with the president on a DACA deal. I really don't think they did. Because if they were truly concerned for these DACA kids, dreamers, upwards of 30 years of age, well, I'll call them kids, well, they would give a little, and then they'd get a little. They knew the president couldn't accept what they were offering. But we know now what the real story is. They had zero intention of negotiating in good faith because somehow they thought they could guilt the president into siding with them. But I guess they don't really know him very well, do they? They are out of ideas and they have no solutions. The race card is the only one they have left to play. But look, despite the racial smears, the unfairness of it all, look at what Trump has already done for Black America. Black unemployment is at its lowest level since the Bureau of Labor Statistics started reporting the data back in 1972. It's at 6.8%. You know what it was in the middle of Obama's first term? 16.8%. Black family income fell by more than $900 per family during the Obama years. Fell. Just in the first 8 months of the Trump administration, Black family income has risen by more than $1,000. I'll take that direction any day of the week. With Chrysler now announcing plants moving from Mexico to the United States, the stock market booming and wages rising across the country due to Trump's tax cutbacks, America will thrive. Listen to Gary from Texas, a caller on my radio show this morning who expressed, I bet, how a lot of minorities really feel about this manufactured controversy.
Were you offended by what you heard the president say as an African-American man?
Not at all. He's trying to fight for this country and give Black people opportunities to get off these streets. We can't do it if we keep bringing folks all over the world with problems in their country. That doesn't mean we have to bring them over here and come into our city and then push our people back.
Well, those are the people the president is fighting for, people who want more economic opportunities. They're not anti-immigrant, but they want to take care of Americans first, the veterans sleeping on the street tonight, those with no opportunities, those who work hard but somehow maybe along the way got addicted to opioids. They need help. And no matter what Durbin or CNN says, that is a fact. The silent majority feels that the system is unfair, and you bet they want it fixed. And when Trump demands a better deal on immigration, one that's going to secure the border and keep illegals from competing with our citizens, like that caller, for jobs that they need, and he's fighting on behalf of all citizens. The president's fighting for blacks, whites, Hispanics, Asians. You're here legally. You're an American citizen. He's fighting for you. And that's the angle. Joining us now for reaction here in studio is Horace Cooper. He's a co-chair of Project 21, and in studio is also Garland Nixon, of course, a liberal radio talk show host. Love everybody's perspective. And in Phoenix is Kevin Jackson, a radio talk show host and Fox News contributor. Great to see all of you. All right, Horace, let me start with you. Your reaction to what's happened over the last 24 hours. The president has in good faith said, all right, we'll give protection to 800,000 people here. They were brought illegally, most of them, of course, of children. And he said, but these are the things we need. These are the things that I campaigned on, we've got to do. And then you saw what happened.
FDR famously said that all we have to fear is fear itself. The New Democrats, all they have to offer is race itself. Every single opportunity to turn the conversation from the facts, the logic, and the merits go to race. It means they're lazy. It means they're not serious. It means they don't have strong perspectives to bring to the table.
Garland?
Well, over the last 24 hours, here's what I see. It appears to me that Donald Trump has very clearly converted the GOP into the party of David Duke and Richard Spencer. And now, from the people that I talk to on the street in the black community see the GOP as the Confederacy. I think that the grassroots movement are gearing up, and the fact of the matter is I think Republicans may feel good, but they weren't paying attention to what happened in Virginia, and they're going to pay a dear price.
Kevin, I'll let you get into it just a second. Let me stay on this for a second.
Okay.
I just listed the facts of what's happening in the American economy. Real dollars in the pockets of real Americans. They desperately need. They need help, they need hope, they need opportunity. The president's policies, set aside the rhetoric, the president's policies are having a really positive effect on people from all walks of life. Do you think in any way that means that the president cares, or you think he's just doing it for what reason?
Well, here's what I think. I think these numbers are being skewed for this reason. Because, for this reason, there's an invisible man. His name's George Bush. Politics in our economy did not start when Barack Obama became president. They got wiped out when Barack Obama became president, and he had to try to fix what the GOP screwed up before. And now, because he walked into a mess.
Let's get Kevin. Okay, I want to get back to you, but Kevin, your perspective on this, and we'll get into some of the examples of what other presidents have said that might be a little bit off color, even about other countries. Go ahead.
Well, thanks for taking off my shackles, Laura. Look, everything that this gentleman is saying is completely wrong. It's circa 1960 BS that the left's been selling to blacks for decades, and it's over. Look, Barack Obama was the worst president in history, and Donald Trump has proven, absolutely, and Horace, you're right there, but he's proving that when you're a leader and you go out and you do the right things, that people start to benefit. And the biggest fear that Democrats have is that Donald Trump's success is the biggest fear they have. Look, all these guys, how many black kids are they going to fly over to go save some kid in Mexico? Let me tell you, the Congressional Black Circus, which is what I call them, they have no care whatsoever for the black communities that they serve. They have underserved these communities for decades, and then you get the people like this gentleman to come on and act as if they care about them. They don't care about them. And Donald Trump's doing the things, and you listed all the things, Laura, when you were in the opening, and they want to overlook these. It's ridiculous.
Horace?
This is the most curious form of racism I've ever seen. You work so that over the last 12 months, black Americans are actually getting employed at a higher rate than any other group.
6.8% unemployment.
The gap between blacks and whites is lowest than it's ever been. That means relative growth has been good for people, but for black people, it's been even better. We set a record in June. We set a record in September. We set another record in January.
This is what Martin Luther King's nephew said today when he was asked about this controversy. Let's watch. MLK.
I think President Trump is not a racist, but I do think that he's racially uninformed.
His nephew, Isaac Newton Ferris Jr., he's uninformed. Do I think he's racist? No, he's not. Does any effect on you?
So I don't judge whether a person is racist as a whole. I judge a person on what they do. The statement that.
So what specifically on what was said or alleged to have been said about certain countries where people are coming disproportionately probably through this visa lottery or other ways, maybe chain migration? Barack Obama just a few years back said, the Atlantic magazine, I'm sure you wouldn't take issue with it, He said the mess is the president's diplomatic term. Privately, he calls Libya a S show.
Okay.
In part because it's subsequently become an ISIS haven, as has Sudan, as has Somalia. Egypt has huge radicalization problems that they're having to deal with. The president, previous President Obama, called it a S show. What's the difference? S-hole, S-show. What's the difference?
It basically is we destroyed Libya. We destroyed it. Our policy.
Okay, so it's okay to demean the people of that country. It's not their fault. I mean, if that's what I'm saying. If that's the barometer, the word S-hole versus S-show. Do you see how it's ridiculous?
Yeah, but let me say this. You got to take this as a whole and understand the symbolism. But the symbolism was very, very powerful because it wasn't just that he talked about these countries that were of darker people, and then he compared them to. Let me finish. It wasn't that he just talked about these particular countries, and then the good country was Norway.
Because he just met with a Norwegian leader.
Conveniently, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed country. That's the good country, and the rest of them are. We understand the symbolism there.
LBJ's
hold on 1 second.
president regularly referred to the Civil Rights Act as the N bill, and he actually bragged that Thurgood Marshall was an N that he was going to sit on the court.
How about Teddy Kennedy after the Immigration Act was passed said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to flood America with people from those countries." So he was very concerned about what people would think about the
But wait a minute.
Teddy Kennedy.
It doesn't matter if
outrage.
Right,
if a Democrat strangled somebody in 1956, that doesn't mean it's okay to strangle them today. It doesn't matter what they did.
Okay, Kevin, go ahead.
When it comes to history, the Democrats are always, going back to the old Negro spirituals and coming out here singing "Swing Low." Look, at the end of the day, there are 65 million refugees in the world. Are they coming from Norway or anywhere in Scandinavia? Are they coming from Canada? Are they coming from America or the UK? No, they're coming from the very places that Donald Trump described. And I'll tell you something else for the Democrats paying attention to this program. What Donald Trump said is what millions of Americans say every single day. We're sending our money to these crap holes, these third world armpits, and expecting something different. We've watched liberal policies ruin not only America, but ruin these countries. They're not industrializing and helping these countries grow. They're feeding dictators.
That's corruption. No, the corruption in these governments. I mean, I spent a lot of time in El Salvador, Guatemala. And these countries are beautiful places that have been destroyed by corrupt regimes.
Absolutely.
And it's been going on for decades. And there's a reason why most people who are talking about these issues don't vacation there. I submit I've spent more time in Guatemala and El Salvador, including during the war in the 1980s, than most of these people who are talking on their high horses right now. That's all I can say.
We've been part of overthrowing both of those countries. We help overthrow a country, and then we say the country's a piece of crap.
How about we overthrow
President
Baltimore?
Obama said that, and you guys didn't get upset about it.
How about we overthrow Detroit?
There is no President Obama.
How about we overthrow Chicago?
Yeah, we're out of time, but here's what I hope for. I hope for people's lives to get better. I hope for things to calm down.
Absolutely.
I don't think having people turn into perpetual grievance factories when things are getting actually better is good for anyone. I don't think it's good for Republicans. I don't think it's good for Democrats. It shows that you're out of ideas. We need solutions to problems that exist. For the DACA kids, you want a solution, we'll get there. For economic growth, we got to get there. For families of all colors who are having struggles, we got to get there. But to constantly keep people in a state of resistance, for what reason? Whose lives are how many jobs are being created by doing that? How many lives are being improved? I don't think many. That's all I have to say about that.